Good morning, everyone. What's up? This is Andrew Kircher again from Port Huron Museums on another one of our architectural walking tours here in a very deserted downtown. But that's good. That means everybody's maintaining their safe social distance. I know I am. There's nobody around. But I want to talk to everyone today about I've got another couple of cool buildings that I think they would enjoy seeing and hearing about. And this one kind of comes at a user request. So this is a reminder, if you like these, you like what you're seeing, you can always throw out some more requests for locations that you want to see. And I'll do my best to get there. This is one we had a couple days ago. Somebody was asking about this rather famous structure. We are, if you don't recognize this, you must not be from Port Huron. This is the Harrington. And this is one of the buildings I want to talk a little bit about today. But while I'm here on this corner, I thought I would also talk about a couple of the other buildings that are here. Maybe we'll see that one last when we kind of cross the street. So the Harrington, this is a really neat hotel, dating back to the really kind of the end of the 19th century, so the end of the 1800s. Port Huron was really on the grow at that time. The St. Clair Tunnel had just opened in 1891. A lot of people were coming to town. The place was very, very busy at the time, so it made sense that you started to see some new businesses spring up, kind of like this one. Architecturally speaking, I'd say it's kind of a Renaissance revival. Kind of gives you a look like a building you might see in Venice or something like that. There are some other things, some influences you certainly see from, there's another style that's really popular at this time for great big buildings like this, especially when it's made out of brick. It's called Richardsonian Romanesque. And one of that kind of defining features are all these arches. This one doesn't really have big arches on the bottom. Like I said, it's a little more Renaissance than anything else. But this hotel I'm really excited about because it is going to become a hotel again. They are working on it. The inside's kind of gutted. In fact, if you look really carefully, you can see there's rooms there full of doors. I think they've got all of the doors off the hinges. They're going to be redoing all of this in the near future. Alright, so here we have the little sign, a Harrington Hotel. Opened to much fanfare in 1896. A unique blend of Romanesque, classical, and Queen Anne architecture. We've talked about all of those. The hotel thrived for many years. So, the Harrington was for a long time kind of a senior living facility. But it's being converted back into a hotel sometime in the near future. Obviously with the COVID, things might change on their kind of timetables and plans. Not a lot of work is getting done there today, but I'm glad to see work is being done. Here's some really great examples of those kind of Romanesque architecture. The Romans really like their big arches, especially stuff made out of masonry, brick like this. It's really, really heavy. Gives this building a really dense appearance. It's not light and airy like something with a lot of glass. There's a lot of brick. This building is very, very heavy. You can see a couple spots where there's some wear up there on some of the windowsills, so it really kind of shows its age. It's pretty impressive when you look at it from right here underneath. Now, two of the really cool things that kind of the hotel is known for, some neat stories. One, back in 1919, Harry Truman, well before he was president, right after World War I, when he married his wife, they came up here. This was one of the stops on their honeymoon. We don't think about Port Huron being a honeymoon destination, but they were passing through. They had some relatives around the Midwest. They were from Missouri, and they came up, and this was where they stayed. So it was a really nice place for them to be able to come and visit. Okay, so here's a neat little architectural detail. So we've got this kind of entablature again, which is the whole thing. We've got these columns. These are composite columns. So these aren't, sometimes you hear ionic columns. They usually have the scroll work, but usually they only have two of them, and you're only meant to look at them head on. The Corinthian columns are the ones with like the acanthus leaves, and they look good from all angles. This one is one that wasn't really used in antiquity because they've got those scrolls and all four corners there, but it looks kind of good if you're able to move around the building and you're not looking at it dead on from one angle. So that's a little bit about the Harrington. Now, I mentioned this is another place I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to get across the street. There's a couple things I like about this building. I think a lot of people probably have never given this building a second look. I know I hadn't for a long time. But believe it or not, this actually started its life as a house all the way back in the 1860s. They've added on, the thing that I think throws a lot of people, is they've added on the great big pediment and the columns out front. But you can try and look behind that. You can see the basic form of a home from the 1860s, kind of an Italianate form, an Italianate villa. It's got that central tower. Now they've added that dome on top, and I guess those are laurel leaves. I always see this, and maybe now everyone else will see it. I always see a smiley face up there, a little guy with a green hat, and that's what I think of every time I go past that building. That's actually one of the older homes in Port Huron that's been used for a number of businesses and updated throughout the years. I think that's pretty neat. You'll notice it's not symmetrical behind that pediment. They didn't hide the other triangular part there particularly well, and the more you look at it, kind of looks a little goofy with what they did. And when you look at the windows up in there on the second floor, you can definitely tell like that was a house and not built as a commercial building. Now, one of the other buildings that I wanted to talk about on this corner here is White's Art Hall. Now, this building obviously has a very unique style here in town. It is Moroccan. You can see it's got these kind of really tulip onion domey type arches there. In fact, there would have been a castle kind of topper on top of this little turret. So notice there's a turret sticks out on the second floor. There was more to this originally, even more ornamentation. But you can tell what this is. If you've ever walked right here and looked up, you can see, you can read it there. White's Art Hall. So he was a photographer in town. In fact, we know for a fact that Thomas Edison, on several occasions, when he came back to town to visit his family for one thing or another, you stay at the Harrington right here across the street, and you get your photograph taken right here. There are some pretty famous photographs taken. I just love this window on the second floor up there. It fits so well. It's clearly, you know, one of the original windows to the building. Something really unique. You don't see that all the time. So it was a photography studio. Now, the question we had a few days ago, we're going to walk just a little bit. The question we had a couple days ago was about some of the buildings that were down here behind Pompeii's, which is that really good Italian restaurant down there, and behind the other building. So there are quite a few warehouses down here, and I think a lot of people maybe haven't walked down here before. So I figured this would be a good chance to go down and walk. It's a little overcast, but it's nice and warm out. So there are a number of warehouses, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know exactly what all of them were. There's a couple ways you can do that. Maybe we'll do a video on like how to look up a building's history. We could go into some of the city directories and try and look up the information. But sometimes the buildings give yourself a really great clue that makes it really obvious. So I don't know if there's any gearheads out there, people who really like automobiles. I like cars. I am working myself in my spare time on restoring a 58 Packard. But if you like cars at all, you'll almost certainly recognize that logo up there. That is, of course, the Ford V8 logo, painted right there on the side of the building. So that gives you a pretty good clue that this building was actually some automotive storage. Had some work for some of the car dealerships that were downtown at the time. There were quite a few. Just you could get any kind of make that you really wanted in Port Huron. Fords, of course, were really popular. The V8 coming out in 32. So that's gives you an idea when that was painted and when this building would have been used for that automotive work. You can see across the street here. Now this is some lofts today called the Ice House Lofts. I like they've put kind of a federal style little window framing there, so it makes it look a little more personalized and a little bit less like a warehouse, but it's definitely a warehouse. And if you can't read it up at the top, it's pretty faded. It's Port Huron Artificial Ice Company. Now, if you haven't gotten the chance to see it, Knowlton's Ice Museum. Now, I work for Port Huron Museum. We're kind of the other museum in town, but I really like Knowlton's too. If you ever get the chance to go there, once things open back up, you can learn all about the history of ice in ice harvesting in the Port Huron and the Great Lakes area. For a long time, ice harvesting was kind of the main way to receive that ice, but obviously artificial ice, well, that just means ice that's been artificially frozen. It's not like fake water or something like that, but that's a different way to process that ice, and even more efficient than going and waiting for it to freeze outside and chopping it out of the frozen lake. So you see more of this, you know, it's very I guess what's the word? The buildings down here are very much industrial. This was an industrial area, kind of always has been. If you were here about 120 years ago, there was actually a pretty big rail switching yard in this vacant area that's still vacant to this day. There was actually like a small depot and quite a few trains that were coming through. One of the rail lines obviously connected up all the way to where the train bridge is still today. Now, I know that's kind of a third rail for some people in Port Huron, but being a historic preservationist, I can't imagine having to fall down on the side of wanting to take down a really cool train bridge, and hope that that can stay up. That could be its own whole video on its own someday. But again, some more little warehouses that have filled in with some pretty cool businesses. Shout out to Petoskey Stone Media here. They work, we work with them at the museum, and they are some of the greatest people to work with. I really can't recommend them enough. They're in the Michigan Cartage Company. So again, makes sense with a rail yard here, lots of goods being shipped in. 100 years ago, before lots of roads were built or even paved here within town. You might have some paved roads, the main roads in town, but a lot of the other ones wouldn't be. Railway is your best way to get in goods shipped across the country. So it makes sense that a cartage company would do a lot of business down here by where that rail yard is. So we've kind of we've looked at some of those warehouses. Of course, down there is Desmond Landing. We've talked a little bit about how Desmond was one of the original kind of settlement names for Port Huron. And the village of Desmond, which merges with all those other villages like Peru and Huron and Gratiot into modern day Fort Gratiot. And what would Port Huron be without Chemical Valley to look at across the way? Maybe not the prettiest sight in the world, but historically pretty interesting. That is the biggest chemical works, one of the biggest ones in North America, certainly the biggest in Canada. And that's all because they were lucky enough to find oil on the other side of the river there. Places like Oil Springs and Petrolia give you a pretty good idea how important that is to the economy there. And now we are down well behind the Harrington. There's the Dairy Queen up there. My mom worked there when I was a kid, and I always remembered that was a highlight for me, getting to go to the Dairy Queen. And the post office. Post office built in the 50s. The Women's Life building, and of course the new YMCA. So who knows? I'm kind of curious what will happen to this area in the next 10-20 years. Just like we were kind of curious the other day about what's going to happen between the hospital and SC4, that neighborhood. I'm kind of curious what will happen down here. What do you guys think? Obviously it's very industrial. As a historian, I don't see us going back to heavy industry in Port Huron. I kind of see tourism as our future with the beautiful, blue water out there. A lot of people coming to the area. So this seems like a prime location for some cool stuff. I know Atchison and Atchison Ventures and Desmond Landing have tried a number of times to kind of jumpstart things down here, some festivals, things like that. So I will be really curious to see what comes of this. What do you guys think is going to happen to this area? What would you like to see down here in the future? We've got a lot of prime real estate right on the water, with nothing in it. Like I said, a lot of older warehouses, late 19th, early 20th century stuff. So we are primed for some expansion here in the next couple decades, one way or the other. So there's kind of your question for the day. Again, if you've liked what you've seen, we've looked at a couple of industrial buildings today, no real houses, except for that one house that was in disguise, of course. But if you want to see some more, or you've got some suggestions or ideas, throw them up in the comments. Like and share this video. It's been, I think, going out to quite a few people today. I was really excited when I saw the newspaper this morning. They ran the article about these tours on the front page today. So clearly people are watching them and enjoying some of them. I've enjoyed going on these walks and talking about something I'm pretty passionate about. So like I said, if you like them, like and share. You can always, I think there's a way you can even get notifications when we go live, so you'll be able to see these. I've been trying to do them about the same time every day. And if you want to support the museum, you can always find out how at our website, phmuseum.org. Those are, there's a number of ways you'd be able to help us out there. And with that, I think I'm going to keep walking through this big vacant lot and enjoying the little bit of cool weather. And again, you can see right where we are, this kind of frequently overlooked area in Port Huron. This it's burgeoning with potential. Let's say that. There's a lot that could happen down here, and I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know about all of you. So with that, again, my name's Andrew Kircher, Community Engagement Manager for Port Huron Museums. Thanks for walking along with us today, and keep your eye on the page. I think we're going to keep doing more. Until next time.